Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jai Yashodanandana Jai Brajjanaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajjanaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Shri Radha Madhav ki jai. The Isopanisad ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So welcome everyone. So nice to be back together again. And I apologize for all the breaks. I was feeling very bad myself that I could not keep up these past few weeks, but many things going on. There's a conference and then my sickness, and everyone is sick right now here in Naperville. Everyone, all the schools, everyone. So I'm just recovered. By Krishna's mercy, I think I'm done for the season until the next season comes. Yes, it got very cold here, so yeah. So I hope all of you are also doing well.
Yes.
And yes, yes. So we'll start with the invocation. You can follow along. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshururmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we will begin now. I think I know which verse we're starting from. Would someone like to remind me which verse we are starting from this time of the Isopanisad?
We completed 14, Prabhuji.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, 15. That's what I was thinking as well. So this is the final section, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And I'm going to be very ambitious today, and we're going to try to finish this. All 4 verses. It's all one section, so it's possible, doable. So I'm not going to expand too much. We will cover the main points so that we can make up for lost time. All of you should also have the homework. It's been shared multiple times on the group. So we'll finish all the verses today in the class. We'll finish the homework. You will finish the homework. And then next week, all of you can take the exam. And then soon after that, we can start with the Bhagavad Gita. So if you can do that, that'll be really wonderful. That'll be, we can then move into the next book, which I believe is the Bhagavad Gita. The last book we did was the Nectar of Instruction. Before that, Nectar of Devotion. So the next book that we're doing is the Gita. And then, so some of you might be graduating after this book. Others will be starting the Gita. However it is, we'll keep on going. So this section, final section, Mantra 15, describes that the highest perfection is to know the Lord's personal or Bhagavan feature. So we've been speaking about personalism and impersonalism, and now this verse 15 establishes that the Lord's personal feature is the highest perfection. Mantras 15 to 18 pray to see the Lord's personal form for remembrance of Him at the time of death and for eternal service. So all these literatures are praying to the Lord that please, at the time of death, let me remember you at that time. That's the goal, right? But we need to pray for that. So the practice is to pray for remembrance of Krishna at the time of death. And finally, the goal, mantra 18, is to attain the loving service at Krishna's lotus feet. That's the goal. First, we learn that both the spiritual and material happiness come from acting as a part of the complete whole, overflowing with love, completely full. We then learn the qualities of the Lord and the vision and consciousness needed to understand those inconceivable attributes. Then we distinguish between the supreme and everything else, ignorance, false knowledge, materialistic religion, and lesser forms of transcendence. Now that we know what we want, love of Krishna, and why we want it, for complete satisfaction of everything, we engage in bhakti. So this is sort of the flow of things, right? In the previous verses, we were talking a lot about difference between real knowledge and material knowledge, spiritual knowledge and material knowledge. And now in this verse, we are these verses, we are now discussing the ultimate thing, which is love for Krishna. So it's gradually bringing us to that point. The highest perfection is to know the Bhagavan feature of the absolute truth, begging for his mercy, for loving service. Mantra 15 establishes that the Lord is beyond his effulgence. Mantra 16 begs the Lord to reveal this form. Mantra 17 expresses the longing to think of the Lord's form at death. And Mantra 18 begs for mercy and release from sin in order to serve the Lord. So text 15. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham Tattvam pushanna pavrinu satyadharmaya drishtaye. This is a very famous verse. This is the verse, actually, when you think of the Isopanisad, you think of this verse. We've been waiting for it for a long time. This verse says, "O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee." Mantra 15 is a prayer to remove the Lord's effulgence so we may see him. Mantra 15 is a prayer for the Lord to remove his impersonal effulgence so that his spiritual form may be revealed to his devotee. As Srila Prabhupada described in his purport to the invocation, the Lord's effulgence is the all-pervading spiritual energy known as Brahman. Further spiritual realization leads us to the localized form of the Lord within every atom and within the heart of every living being, known as Paramatma. But the highest spiritual realization is of Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is always blissfully engaging in his own pastimes for the pleasure of his devotees. He also periodically exhibits these pastimes within the material world to attract the materially conditioned souls. By empiric philosophy, one may realize the impersonal Brahman effulgence. By yogic practices, one may realize the Paramatma feature of the Lord, situated within the heart. But only by devotional service can one realize Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Mantras 12 to 14 describe the necessity of understanding Krishna in relationship with his material energies. Mantra 15 explains that one must also understand Krishna's relationship with his spiritual potency, the Brahmajyoti, in order to achieve realization of him. If one wants to see the absolute truth in full, one has to penetrate beyond the 24 material elements and the glaring effulgence as well. Sri Isopanisad points toward this direction, praying for the removal of the Hiranmaya Patra, the dazzling covering of the Lord. Unless this covering is removed, so one can perceive the real face of the personality of Godhead, factual realization of the absolute truth can never be achieved. So, when we come to spiritual life, we are removing you could say, the attractions of this material world. So you could say the glitter of this material life is being removed, right? When we come to spiritual life, we're looking into spiritual qualities, spiritual form, spiritual activities. And the material effulgence, the material glitter becomes less and less attractive. Now, when we come to spiritual life, then there's another glow, and that glow is of the impersonal Brahman, this immense light emanating from the Lord, which is spiritual, is transcendental, but that light hides the actual form of the Lord. Just like we see when Lord Krishna was in Hastinapur and he was in the assembly of Dhritarashtra, and Duryodhana lost his mind and became so angry with Krishna, he dared to attack Krishna in the assembly, have his soldiers try to capture him. So then Krishna at that time expands himself and shows his, his Vishnu form. Not, sort of actually more like a universal form, but not the complete form. And when he shows this form, then there's so much light emanating from it that no one in the assembly can see Lord Krishna. Everyone's eyes become blinded by that light, except for who? Who could actually see Krishna at that time?
Sanjaya?
Sanjay was not there. This is not the battle of Kurukshetra. Sanjay comes in later. Before that, there was who?
Yudhishthira.
Yudhishthira was not there because Krishna is gone as a peace messenger. So he was not.
Drona, I think Dronacharya and even Dhritarashtra saw a glimpse of his
Vidur and Bhishma.
Vidura. Yes.
Yes. Bhishma, Vidura, Kripacharya. Some editions say Dronacharya, others say no, not Dronacharya. But basically those who were purified in heart, they could see the Lord because they could penetrate that effulgence was not blinding their eyes. They could penetrate that effulgence and see the form of the Lord. So even if the Lord comes before us, we will not be able to see him if our eyes are not purified, our heart is not purified, because Krishna's effulgence will blind our eyes because we're not qualified. To see the Lord, we must be qualified, and what to speak of, controlling the Lord, this, that. We cannot even see the Lord. His effulgence is so brilliant. Only the great devotees in that assembly, Bhishma Dev, Vidura, those who are purified in heart, they could see the Lord. Unless this covering is removed, Prabhupada is saying, so one can perceive the real face of the personality of Godhead, factual realization of the absolute truth can never be achieved. And this is what happens with the Mayavadis, the great yogis, all these great ascetics. They're so great. They're such great ascetics, but they get stuck on the effulgence of the Lord. They're not able to realize anything beyond it. They're Brahmavadis. So they don't actually become blinded, you could say. It's not like exactly like that scene in the assembly of Dhritarashtra, but they become bewildered. They think there's nothing higher than this effulgence. They cannot think beyond the effulgence, you see. So even in spiritual life, we have to move past beyond this effulgence to Krishna, and that takes a lot of spiritual development. So Prabhupada here will explain these words, Satya Dharmaya, which are qualities of the Lord. The killing of various demons described in this verse. The killings of various demons such as Agha, Baka, Putana, and Pralambha were but pleasure excursions for him. In his village of Vrindavan, he enjoyed himself with his mother, brother, and friends. And when he played the role of a naughty butter thief, all his associates enjoyed celestial bliss by his stealing. The Lord's fame as a butter thief is not reproachable. For by stealing butter, the Lord gave pleasure to his pure devotees. Everything the Lord did in Vrindavan was for the pleasure of his associates there. So this is the quality about Krishna, that he's Shubhada, he's all auspicious. Even his stealing is auspicious. Our stealing is inauspicious. He is Satya Dharmaya, he's always pleasing to his devotees. He does everything for the pleasure of his devotees. Here, in contrast to mantras 12 and 13, it is clearly stated that that as it is generally in Prabhupada's books, that the jnani who seeks liberation and the Brahman is superior to the karmis who worship demigods for material pleasure. Higher than the Jnani is the yogi who worships the super soul. And higher is the bhakta who worships Bhagavan. So you have the karmi, the jnani, the yogi, and the bhakta. The best being the bhakta. How is the worshipper of Brahman higher than the karmi? Yet in mantra 12 and 13 it is stated that he or she is lower. The point is that misapplied knowledge of God is more dangerous than materialism. Like misapplied knowledge is more dangerous than ignorance. But one can also say that knowledge is better than ignorance. And interest in God, even impersonally, is higher than materialism. So we saw this some verses back, how the acharyas, they understand these verses in both ways. We saw how many of the acharyas were saying that impersonal understanding is worse than demigod worship. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the same set of verses, he was saying no, that you could say materialism and demigod worship is worse than Brahman realization, because both are true. On one hand, Brahman realization is at least transcendence. It's moving beyond the material world. It's not aspiring after material things, and one is in the transcendental, you could say, home or abode of the Lord. On the other hand, impersonalism is worse than demigod worship, because in demigod worship, we will rise gradually and at one point come to the platform of bhakti. But in impersonalism, one will become attached to the impersonal feature of the Lord and can waste many millions and millions of years in getting free from that impersonal position. And so therefore, both things are true, and Prabhupada again discusses this in the purport that either understanding can be true. But in general, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also said that Mayavadi Bhashya Sunile Sarva Hoy Nash, that just by hearing the impersonalist philosophy, one is destroyed, because the risks are very high. If we get attached to the impersonal Mayavad philosophy, then people, their whole life gets wasted in just trying to, it's lost in not being able to know that Krishna is a person. Whereas the materialist can easily make a spiritual advancement. So the impersonalist is actually harder for them to make spiritual advancement sometimes. The three features of the absolute truth. The Bhagavan feature is sustaining the others. Therefore, the speaker is appealing to this feature of the Lord. Lord Krishna, the supreme Bhagavan feature, is an ocean of bliss. And this is seen in his childhood pastimes in Vrindavan. Even pastimes that might appear immoral, for example, stealing butter, are transcendently wonderful. To enter those pastimes is not easy. The example of the cowherd boys is given. Lord Krishna is always engaged in such pastimes in the 5 rasas. So it's the Bhagavan feature that sustains the Paramatma feature and the effulgence emanating from the Lord. So therefore it is the most important feature of the Lord, the most foundational and central feature of the Lord. And to attain this form of the Lord and the pastimes of the Lord is not easy. What is the example of the cowherd boys? In the Krishna book, Prabhupada writes that the coward boys were playing with Krishna because they performed heaps of pious activities. Heaps and heaps of pious activities. You see. So the three features of the absolute truth, the first one is Paramatma. The Paramatma feature is maintaining the material creation. So if Lord Krishna is always enjoying in the spiritual world, we might wonder how he is maintaining the material world. This is done through the Supersoul. One should learn the three Purusha avatars who create and maintain the material world. So in the material world, the Paramatma feature is very important. From these, the different types of Vishnus emanate, and they maintain this world. All the Purusha avatars, they're in charge of this material world. The three features of the absolute truth, the third one is Brahman. Undifferentiated Brahman isn't everything. Still a bit clogged. Perfect knowledge means to understand Lord Krishna as a source of the Brahma Jyoti. This verse is proof that the impersonal theory that we and God are one is not true, because if it was, we would not have to pray to have the effulgence taken away so we could see the face of the Lord. Very important point here, that this verse, and this is why this Upanishad, Prabhupada translated, is very important. It proves that the Krishna's personal form is higher than Brahman. This verse essentially disputes all of Mayavad philosophy. Because if it was the highest, why would the worshipper, the author of this Isopanisad say that kindly remove this effulgence? You don't remove something that's the ultimate goal. But he's asking, kindly remove this effulgence so that I can see you, my Lord. So this verse is proof. So therefore, to realize Krishna is a great science. It is not easy. Even if one becomes advanced through Sankhya, and one realizes the 24 elements, or impersonalism, and one realizes the Brahma Jyoti, one will still not see the Lord face to face. Somehow one has to get the potency to penetrate the elements and the veil of Brahma Jyoti to see him in person. So we have to, in order to realize the Lord, we have to break out of this material world. We have to enter into the Brahma Jyoti, and then we can see Lord Krishna. We have to pass through the material creation, the material coverings, also the spiritual Brahma Jyoti, and finally, after passing through both of these, we can attain the Lord. Okay, and now we are on mantra 16. 1 second, I'll just be back. I have to. Pushane karshayama surya Pushane karshayama surya prajapatya Vyuha rashmin samuha tejo Yatte rupam kalyanatamam tatte pashyami Yo savaso purusha soham asmi. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun, as am I. So this verse again is saying the same thing. Please remove the effulgence. Please allow me to see your form of bliss. this effulgence is really blocking us from seeing the Lord, the personal form of the Lord. We are persons. We must aspire to see the personal form of the Lord, not just some effulgence. Mantra 16 is a prayer to realize the Lord Himself and our relationship with Him. In Mantra 16, the devotee prays, along with realizing the form of the Lord, to also realize his own spiritual position in relation to the Lord, right? The Lord Himself and our relationship with Him. You are the eternal personality of Godhead, like unto the sun, as am I. I am of that same nature. I am the rays. I am one ray of that sun. The living entities are compared to the rays of the sun, as they are qualitatively the same as the Lord. The name Bhagavan, signifying the personal form of the Lord, establishes Him as the maintainer and guardian of all living entities. For the devotees, He personally guides them on the path of spiritual realization, thus giving Himself to them. Again, the speaker feelingly appeals to the Lord to remove the Brahmajyoti effulgence, obscuring His beautiful face, referring to Him in different features in which he is kind to people. He and the Lord are one in quality, like the sun and its rays. So more on the Bhagavan feature. The oneness of the sun and its rays is similar to our oneness with Krishna. Just as within the sun there is the sun god, similarly within Goloka Vrindavan, from which the Brahmajyoti comes, there is Lord Krishna enjoying his pastimes. Again, the principle of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva is touched upon. So Achintya Bheda Bheda means inconceivable oneness and difference, which means that the relationship between the soul and God is inconceivably one and different. We are one with the Lord, yet we are different from the Lord simultaneously. We're wholly and solely one with the Lord, yet we are wholly and solely also different than the Lord. And both have to be true. Just like the sun rays is one with the sun, yet it is also different than the sun. The impersonalists are dazzled by the Brahmajyoti and cannot see the Lord's face. The three features of the Absolute Truth are progressively more auspicious. The words of this mantra are clearly not supporting impersonalism. This mantra again is not supporting impersonalism. So now we have two mantras at least to give to the impersonalist. In Srila Jiva Goswami's Bhagavad Sandarbha, he defines Bhagavan as he who possesses all six opulences in full: renunciation, strength, fame, knowledge, wealth, and beauty. These are the six qualities. Very important to know this. Most of us should already know this, but if we don't, these are the six qualities that make Bhagavan Bhagavan: renunciation, strength, fame, knowledge, wealth, and beauty. Krishna has all six qualities in full, therefore he is Krishna. We have these qualities in minute particles, and therefore we are not Krishna. So this is quite detailed here. It's getting quite detailed, more and more detailed. Let me just see very quickly. Wow, we have a lot to go through. So the Bhagavan feature, Bhagavan is composed of three parts. Bha means maintainer and guardian. Krishna maintains his devotees, guides them on the path to devotional perfection. Ga means guide, leader, or creator. Gives the desired result of devotional service by giving himself to the devotees. He helps them to see him face to face. Thus, he helps them reach him in Golok Vrindavan. And number 3, Van means every living being lives in him, and he lives in every being. He can bestow all necessary qualifications on the devotee so he can realize him. So Krishna maintains us, Krishna guides us so that we can reach our ultimate destination. We don't get stuck partway in between. And Krishna lives in all living beings, all living entities. The Lord is the cause of all causes, so he is the source of his own enjoyment. Although through his internal potency. The external potency, which is not exactly directly manifested from him, comes from the Purushas. Through them he creates. Maintains and destroys the material creation. The jivas are also differentiated parts of the Lord's self, and when they desire to enjoy independence, they are put into this world. And they bring this world to life by their energy. But he is the ultimate controller as a super soul. So there's a gulf of difference between the Lord and the jivas. So we are one with the Lord, also different than him. But the Lord is far, far greater. And this is what will be explained. That while the jivas are one with the Lord, there also is a gulf of difference between the Lord and the jivas because of this difference, this immense and unlimited difference in capacity. The all-pervading feature of the Lord, which exists in all states and from which all jivas have come, is known as Brahman. Lord Krishna is the origin of Brahman and Paramatma. So he is a source of all jivas and everything that exists. One who understands this becomes a devotee, who is fully attached to him and relishes being with other devotees, glorifying Krishna. The imperfect devotees who have only realized Brahman and Paramatma cannot appreciate these activities of the pure devotees. The Lord favors these pure devotees, which also cannot be understood by the Gyanis and Yogis who think that advancement comes through their own strength. But the Lord is very kind to the devotees. Okay, text 17. Vayuranilam amritam athedam bhasman mantam shariram Om krato smara kritam smara krato smara kritam smara. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. This is a very unique verse because it's one of the few verses you'll find in the Shastras where the devotee is asking the Lord, please remember everything that I have done for you. Generally, we say, oh, I haven't done anything. Generally, we express humility. But here, the devotee is saying, please remember everything that I've done for you. Why is that the case? Why do you think that's the case?
Just getting some kind of assurances.
Getting some type of assurances. Yes, very nice.
Is it
Yes.
Is it because it's the last prayer?
Second.
No, as in like last prayer before, because it's talking about body being burnt to ashes.
Yes. Yes, it's a prayer before death. Devotee is this is a matter of rasa, aesthetics, like Rajiv Prabhu, you're saying, Rajiv Prabhu, that the devotee is praying to Krishna that please remember anything and everything that I've done for you, because now I'm about to give up my body. So otherwise the devotee is just interested in service. They're not interested in, making a big document to please Krishna, to appease Krishna. No, they just want to serve Krishna. But because they are giving up their body now, they're feeling like the Lord should kindly remember what I've done for him. So he may be merciful to me so I can, in my next life, serve him nicely. The mantra 17 is a prayer for the Lord to remember our service unto him. And then this here I touched on it last time, is the wonderful narration of Haridas Thakur. We see here in the image, who was praying to the Lord that kindly let me see your pastimes until the end moment of my life. So realizing that Lord Chaitanya was about to leave this material world, Haridas Thakur requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that let me leave this body before even you leave it. And the Lord fulfilled his desire. The Lord fulfilled his heart's desire. Even if at the time of death, a devotee does not remember his service to the Lord does not forget him. This prayer is given to remind the Lord of the devotee's services. But even if there is no such reminder, the Lord does not forget the service rendered by his pure devotee. Right? This is so amazing. It's just so heart-touching, these verses. Because the devotee, out of their natural humility, is wanting to remind the Lord out of hopes that the Lord may be kind upon him, and not because he wants heaven and wealth and happiness and the comforts of the spiritual world, but because he wants the Lord's devotional service. He wants more service. That's why he's reminding the Lord. But Prabhupada here is saying that even if the devotee forgets to remind the Lord never forgets. The Lord never forgets the sacrifice of his devotee. And this is a fact. Devotees will do so much service, and everyone will forget their service. But Krishna never forgets their service. Krishna is eternally grateful for them, for their services. He'll continually reciprocate with them for their service. And that's why he is Suhridam, the closest friend, the most grateful friend, the best friend of a person. Because he doesn't forget one's sacrifices. Everyone else in this world does, but Krishna does not. Krishna is not an imperfect person that he may remember or he may forget, like we do. No, he is perfect. If he should remember, he remembers. If he needs to reward someone, then he rewards. But we cannot be in charge of that process. Only Krishna can. This mantra's explanation appears in Srimad Bhagavatam. Maharaj Parikshit asked Shukadeva Goswami, what is the duty of a person at the time of death? And Shukadeva Goswami replied with Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.5. Everyone who desires to be free from all anxieties should always hear about, glorify, and remember the personality of Godhead, who is the supreme director of everything, the extinguisher of all difficulties, and the supersoul of all living entities. So hearing and chanting, right? More hearing and chanting. That is what makes a person's life and death successful. I remember, one example of asking the Lord to remember is when Uddhava comes to Vrindavan and meets with the gopis, and the gopis, they appeal to Uddhava that does Krishna remember his parents, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba? Does he remember his friends here? Does he remember the cows here? They're too, you could say, embarrassed to ask, does he remember us? But they do eventually. They ask the Lord that, do you remember us? Why did you leave us for such a long time? But the point being that then when they meet Uddhava, they ask him, does the Lord remember how his parents, Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, and does he remember how much they're missing him, how much they're suffering in his separation? So these are expressions of devotion by a devotee to appeal to the mercy of the Lord, because the Lord is a person. He's not just a gigantic machine. He's a person, and he likes it when we relate with him as a person. Understanding and getting freedom from the body. This slide is describing how by this meditation, by this practice, one gets freedom from the material body, and such a person surrenders to Lord Krishna. Prabhupada describes in this purport that the perfection is bhakti, not Brahmajyoti. The Brahmajyoti is full of spiritual sparks, some of whom sometimes want to fall down. So to be in the Brahmajyoti is not perfection. That is found in pure devotional service. The impersonalists cannot penetrate the Brahmajyoti because they don't believe in the supreme, in the personality of the, because they don't believe in the personality of the absolute truth. The pure devotee makes this type of prayer to prayer at the time of death, of wanting to remember Krishna. He wants to go back to Godhead, so he wants to remember Krishna, and he wants Krishna to remember him. Those who are completely under the rule of material nature, remember their material activities and take material bodies accordingly. Unlike the animals, dying humans can remember their life like a dream, seeing their life like flash before them. Their minds are surcharged with material desires. Then they take birth again accordingly. But even if a devotee is not able to remember Krishna, Krishna remembers him. Even if the devotee does not ask Krishna to remember him and what he has done, the Lord does so. So Srila Prabhupada actually said this. This is the book marathon. We've just started the book distribution marathon. All around the world, devotees are distributing books to please Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had said so many wonderful things about this marathon time, how we should all distribute books. And one of the things that Prabhupada says is that how if we distribute Srila Prabhupada's books sincerely and seriously until the end of our life, then he says, even if we are unable to remember Krishna at the time of our life, but if from the time that we find Krishna consciousness directly all the way until the end, we distribute Prabhupada's books, then at the end, the Lord will forcibly enter into the mind of that devotee. So even if we don't remember Krishna, Lord Chaitanya will forcibly enter into the mind of that devotee. And that is our insurance plan. That's our protection. That even if a devotee is not able to remember Krishna, Krishna will remember him for the service he's done. So Prabhupada said, therefore we should especially distribute books, especially preach and do Sankirtan, because then we're guaranteed that the Lord becomes so happy and so kind to such a devotee that the Lord himself will deliver that devotee. Constant engagement in these 9 processes will keep one in constant contact with the Lord. And in this way, at the end of life, one will remember Krishna. We don't have to go back to the spiritual world by some trick or some fluke, but rather the more we serve Krishna and his devotees, the more we can be assured, be confident that at the end Krishna will take me back home, back to Godhead.
Wow.
Yes, and then Prabhupada describes the 9 processes of devotional service: hearing, chanting, praying, vandanam, remembering, smaranam, by worshipping the Lord, dasyam, pada sevanam, dasyam, archanam, no, shravanam, kirtanam, Vishnu smaranam, archanam, vandanam, we got that. Dasyam, by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, attained perfection.
Adasevanam.
Yes. And then Dasyam is number 7, Sakyam is number 8, and 9 by surrendering everything to the Lord, like Maharaj Ambrish or Maharaj Bali Maharaj. So here we have Atmanivedanam, Sakyam, Dasyam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Smaranam, Vandanam, Kirtanam, and Shravanam. 9 processes of devotional service. And each one of these processes is particularly exemplified by one devotee. And those devotees are shown here. Hanumanji is in which rasa?
Dasya.
Yes, Dasiras. He's a servant. He'll get anything done. If he needs to distribute 10,000 books, he'll go and distribute 10,000 books. Nothing in this world stops his determination. Right? He's the example of being a servant. If we can also become a servant of the Lord, we're liberated. The only thing stopping us from getting liberation, from becoming liberated, is that we are not interested in serving Krishna. We are interested in enjoying Krishna. Then here we find Uddhava and Krishna. Which mood is Uddhava in?
Sakyam.
Huh?
Sakyam.
Sakyam, friendship. He was one of Krishna's dear friends. And this last one?
Atmanivedanam.
Yes. Who is this here?
Bali Maharaj.
Yes. He surrendered himself to the lotus feet of Krishna, of Lord Vamandev. That's full self-surrender. Surrendering everything, whatever resource I have, whatever intelligence I have, whatever I have, I'll just offer it to Krishna. Nothing for myself, everything for Krishna. No money for myself, no time for myself, no ego for myself, no food for myself, no clothing for myself, no home for myself, everything just for Krishna. So the easiest, I think, the most relevant, not the easiest, but the most relevant for us is Dasyam. Because we're attached. We cannot artificially give up everything because then we'll run after it again. We're also not on the level of Krishna's friend. But all of us can be Krishna's servant. We can all serve the Lord, and we can serve him more and more and more. And to the degree of our determination to serve him, because serving is also not easy, but to the degree of our determination to serve, to that degree, we will attain the Lord. Mantra 18. Agnenaya supathara, Agnenaya supathara raya asman, Vishvani deva vayunani vidvan, Yuyodhyasmaj juhuranameno, Bhuyishtam te nama uktim videma. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances, falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins, so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. So now the devotee is getting really intense. He's really praying to the Lord. I'm falling on your feet. I offer my obeisances unto you again and again, falling on the ground at your lotus feet. Please lead me on the right path. You know everything. You know the past. You know the present. You know the future. Now please free me from the reactions of my past sins, so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. So one may wonder at this point, and we'll discuss this more, but I might as well, it's coming to my mind, so I mentioned it. One may wonder that why should the devotee be concerned about sins? And why is he asking freedom from sins? He should be asking for pure devotional service, for raganuga bhakti, spontaneous love for Krishna. The reason he is saying this, because Prabhupada clearly writes that actually one can only serve Krishna until one be from. One cannot serve the Lord unless one is free from all sins. It's not possible. He writes, only when our sinful activities are finished, only when we are on the liberated platform can we actually serve the Lord. And liberated platform means freedom from sins. Because our past reactions of sinful activities are still there. That's why we're not able to love Krishna. Still the bad thoughts, the bad ideas are there. Because, see, these bad desires are themselves karmas. They are aprarabdha karmas. We have prarabdha and aprarabdha, right? So part of the unmanifest reaction of a sinful activity is a proclivity or desire to do more of it, to do more sinful activities. So why does our mind not run after Krishna? Because we still have material desires. And those material desires are a result of past sinful activities. So if Krishna burns away these reactions, then we can actually serve Krishna in spontaneous love. Prayer for the Lord to guide us on the path to reach him. This is 18, mantra 18. The devotee prays for guidance on the spiritual path and the removal of past sinful reactions which may hinder his progress. One becomes perfect by thus surrendering unto the Lord, who at once takes charge of such a devotee. Gradually, such a devotee develops all the qualities of a saintly person, such as truthfulness, self-control, tolerance, simplicity, and faith in God. The Lord thus guides the devotee on the path of righteousness and spiritual progress. He guides externally as the scriptures, saints, and spiritual master, and internally from within the heart. As one follows this path of the Lord, one becomes a pure devotee. So this verse is begging for guidance, begging so much that the devotee is saying again and again, I'll offer my obeisances to you. Mantra 18 is the concluding prayer of the devotee who desires to achieve Krishna's mercy. The speaker humbly throws himself at the lotus feet of the Lord and begs for guidance and for help to become free from his karma. So this is one of the first things we have to do is prapatti, is surrender to the Lord, throw ourselves to the lotus feet of the Lord and beg for guidance. Pray to the Lord. Praying to God is so powerful that please give me guidance. Krishna helps the devotee even if fallen. Even if one falls from the path of yoga, one will get the opportunity in one's next life. Through surrender, one is elevated to the spiritual platform quickly, and the Lord gives all help which is not available to others. To err is human, but Lord Krishna helps the sincere devotees, even if they make mistakes, and he corrects them, either through sadhu, shastra, and guru, or directly from within the heart. One has to learn all this under good direction. If one gets the direction of a good spiritual master, it is to be understood that he has the mercy of the Lord. The Lord actually appears to the conditioned soul as the spiritual master. Thus he reaches perfection. So if one gets a very wonderful spiritual master, that by itself shows that the Lord is being merciful to this person. This person has the mercy of the Lord because he was able to get the association, get the mercy, get the shelter of a spiritual master. And Krishna helps that devotee. He knows the devotee will fall in between, but he picks him back up. He helps him in so many ways. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, we just have a few more. I'm going to quickly go through these. So the value of bhakti, the burden of sins is eradicated. We realize not only our separate existence from the body, but our activities and emotions as an individual soul. So bhakti destroys sins, makes us understand that we're a soul. We become untouched by material miseries. The Lord personally protects and maintains us. He personally helps us progress, even if we fall from the path. Krishna protects his devotees. He maintains his devotee and he helps his devotee to progress on this path, like Gajendra. So what is the process of surrender? There are 6 symptoms of surrender. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. 1, accept things favorable for discharging devotional service. 2, reject things unfavorable. 3, always believe firmly in the Lord's protection. Always believe firmly in the Lord's protection. 4, feel exclusively dependent on the mercy of the Lord. 5, have no interest separate from the interests of the Lord. And 6, always feel oneself meek and humble. So these are the 6 symptoms of surrender, which are the path and process of bhakti. And then we have the 9 stages of bhakti, which we will cover in detail in the Nectar Devotion. It begins with Shraddha, faith. From faith we get Sadhu Sangha, which is association. Then Bhajana Kriya. We engage in the process of devotional service, Anartha Nivritti, freedom from anarthas, impurities within our heart. Then from that we get Nishtha, which is firm faith in the Lord. Ruchi, which is a taste for serving the Lord. Asakti, intense attachment to serving the Lord. Bhava, pure love, ecstasy, and prema, pure love of God. Prema Pamartha Mahan, highest stage. The effect of bhakti, from Prabhupada concludes the Isopanisad with this purport: hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord is itself an act of piety. Right? Punya Shravana Kirtana. Bhakti is itself the most pure thing. The Lord wants everyone to hear and chant his glories because he is the well-wisher of all living entities. By hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, one becomes cleansed of all undesirable things, and then one's devotion becomes fixed upon the Lord. At this stage, the devotee acquires the Brahminical qualifications, and the effects of the lower modes of nature, passion and ignorance, completely vanish. The devotee becomes fully enlightened by virtue of his devotional service, and thus he comes to know the path of the Lord and the way to attain him. As all doubts diminish, he becomes a pure devotee. So, tada rajastamo bhava. All of the gunas and their effects vanish by hearing and chanting about the Lord. This is what the Bhagavatam also says. And by chanting and hearing about the glories of the Lord, who is the well-wisher of all living entities, we become most perfect and pious. And that's what you're doing in this Bhakti Shastri. This is why this Bhakti Shastri is so wonderful. So the summary of these verses is: the speaker finally appeals to the Lord to remove his dazzling bodily effulgence and reveal his personal form. The time of death is approaching, and the devotee acknowledges that he is far from perfect, but prays that the Lord be merciful to him and, overlooking his shortcomings, accept him as his eternal servant and give him shelter at his lotus feet. Very earnest prayer, very powerful prayer. Every moment that we live, death could be around the corner. So this should be our prayer at all times. This is not just for a dying person, but this is for every person, because who knows when we can die? All of us are about to die. And therefore, we are praying to the Lord in the same way that the speaker of the Isopanisad is praying. And this is our prayer. Okay, so thank you very much. We have a few minutes for questions. I have to leave in exactly 5 minutes. So I'll actually start with Ranchor Prabhu. I think you had some questions, Prabhu. Maybe you can start with one question, and next time we'll take more questions.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you for the wonderful class. I just had one question that's been like lingering for a little bit. So we have like the six limbs of surrender, like anukulya sankalpa, pratikulya bharjana, rakshasharati vishwasa, and so on. And then we have the 9 processes of bhakti.
Yes.
Six limbs of surrender. How exactly does that connect with the 9 processes of bhakti? Like, do we do all of them and then bhakti starts, or like when does each of them come in at what point in what point of service?
So gradually, these 6 symptoms of surrender develop as we progress in our 9 stages of bhakti. So as we progress, we become more and more surrendered and purified. And as we surrender, then we progress. So they both go hand in hand, but in no specific order. One is more, you could say, in terms of our practice of bhakti, one is more in terms of the change of heart. The 6 symptoms of surrender is our heart is changing and we are surrendering to Krishna more and more.
Okay, so yeah, just to summarize, it's that we do like the acts of, we do like the 9 processes of bhakti. And then as we advance in devotional service, our mood of surrender naturally increases.
Yes.
So then do we have
And also as we practice surrendering more, we practice these 6 limbs more, we meditate on them, apply them, the more also our stages of devotion, we start to progress on those 9 stages of devotion.
Okay, so yeah, our responsibility is still to like implement these 9 limbs of, or sorry, these 6 limbs of surrender, and then we will gradually advance through bhakti as well, along with practicing our 9 processes of bhakti, primarily hearing and chanting.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice question. So regarding the exam for Isopanisad, please finish the homework. Try to finish everything this week. And sometime on next weekend or next week, arrange a time with your proctor. And when you have that arranged, email me and I will send them the exam. I'll send the proctor the exam. So send me a WhatsApp message or call me, or email is kind of hard for me. I have a tough time keeping up with it, but call me, WhatsApp message me, and then I will send the exam to them. They will proctor it, and once you're done, you immediately email it to me. You email it back to me. So this is how we always do it. Very simple. We don't make it complicated. Find a devotee, a authority, a counselor, someone who can proctor it for you. Ideally, it should not be a family member, but any other responsible devotee other than a family member, or anyone who would be unbiased and be a good proctor, have them proctor it. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Quick
Krishna.
question.
Yes.
So, what is the duration of the exam and
Oh, yes. So the exam will be on Isopanisad and Nectar of Instruction, right? We completed Nectar of Instruction also and Isopanisad. So both books are taken together, and the instructions will be there. The proctor will get it. It's a short exam because these are small books. You have I think an hour and a half, and there's about 20 short answer questions, and you have to write down the verses that you had to memorize. And I can work with people. I am flexible. If you're going to India or you cannot take it now, you can take it later, but it's in your interest to get it done because we keep moving on. So if you leave it, then people never catch up and they'll keep leaving it.
yeah?
Okay.
So it's a combined exam basically.
Yes.
NOI plus Isopanisad.
Yes. And proctor means, yes, you take it in their presence. And so you will be doing the combined exam in their presence. You can always ask questions on the WhatsApp group. I'll answer it. I'm really sorry I have to go now.
Yep.
Another call. So we will all meet again. Next week, we will not meet because you'll be taking your exams. The week after, if everyone is done with their exams, then we'll meet, or maybe we might meet the week after. Sometimes it takes people 2 weeks to get everything done, all the homework and the exams. But I will message you on the WhatsApp group based on the response, and we will meet after you complete this exam. So not everyone, some people will not finish, but most of you'll take the exam, and then we'll start the next book. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.